So, good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining Alexandria Library for part two of a two-part series on incorporating native plants for biodiversity. Tonight's focus on designing your native plant garden. My name is Megan Zimmerman, and I am a librarian at the Barrett branch. Tonight's event is being recorded and will be available on the Alexandria Library's YouTube channel under the Sustainability series. If you have questions for tonight's speaker, feel free to put them in the chat, and then towards the end of the presentation, we'll have time to get to those questions. I want to say thank you to the Alexandria Beautification Commission for making this webinar possible. And welcome to Elizabeth Geffler, who's the vice chair of the commission, who will tell us a little bit more about what the commission does. Elizabeth.
Thank you, Megan. Thanks everybody for being here. Just to give you a little bit of information for those of you who haven't heard about the Alexandria Beautification Commission, we were created by the city to advise the city council and citizens on all matters related to the city's beautification. And we have three major goals, one of which is an awards program that is inspiring beautification through an awards program. Second goal is to promote environmental sustainability through collaboration and engagement with city council and city staff and private organizations. And then their third goal is associated with what we're doing today, which is educating the local community on beautification and sustainability best practices. So our awards program covers 4 categories: architecture, commercial, community, and residential. And our 2024 awards program is currently underway. We had about 90 or so nominations earlier in the summer, and the 2024 award winners are actually going to be announced next week in the press and on the city's website. And we have an annual award ceremony that is going to take place this year on October 17th. So I encourage all of you to consider nominating yourselves or your neighbors or any buildings or businesses or parks in Alexandria that you, think would meet the criteria, which is all laid out on our website for 2025, for next year. So you can follow us on our website at alexandriavirginia.gov, Beautification Commission. And we're also on Facebook and Instagram, and our Instagram handle is at beautifulalx. So just wanted to give a little introduction to Janet. We're so thrilled to have her here today as our instructor. Janet Entwistle has been a gardener all of her life. And after retiring from the World Bank a few years ago, she enrolled in the Master Gardener program and quickly realized the importance of incorporating native plants to maintain biodiverse local ecosystems and contribute to global biodiversity and a healthy planet. She teaches classes on this topic at American University's Osher Lifelong Learning Institute, which is where I met her. She was my instructor when I took a couple of her courses, which were excellent. And she also educates many community groups as well. So she's now in the process, and she'll tell us about this, of slowly converting her own garden and incorporating more native plants, and is here today to provide practical tips for all of you on how you can get started or build upon your previous efforts. So thank you so much, Janet, for being here, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Liz. Nice to see you again. Good evening, everyone. I'm so excited to be here again and share with you more ideas on creating not just a beautiful garden, but a beautiful garden that contributes to a healthy local ecosystem. And I'm excited to continue to work together with you to help retain the Washington, D.C. area's unique biodiversity. Yes, July 27th, we talked about the importance of biodiversity and the risk of extinction that so many species face. And we talked about why it is now considered so critical that private homeowners play a role as more and more land is concentrated in private hands. Choosing to plant native plants in our gardens and changing gardening practices, such as retaining fallen leaves instead of disposing of them, They're both critical to protecting biodiversity. You may remember the main message from July 27th, plant choice matters. As the title of today's presentation suggests, I will now focus on practical tips that can help encourage a healthy local ecosystem in our gardens. Before getting started, a reminder that I want to learn from you today as well, so please continue to share generously your knowledge and experience. Megan had indicated the chat is available if you'd like to make some comments or have some questions. My main reference materials for today, in addition to Doug Tallamy's books, are the Mount Cuba Center, Plant Finder, and other native plant finders. Mount Cuba Center is a nonprofit botanical garden near Wilmington, Delaware, that also produces research related to native plants. For keystone plants, my source is the National Wildlife Federation. We discussed July 27th that some of you have already reduced the size of your lawn to make room for native plants. Some are planning to remove invasives and want to fill the empty space with natives. I heard from a number of you that you are interested in filling containers on your balcony or porch with native plants. Maybe you would like to plant native plants where you usually plant annuals or replace ornamental plants that have died with natives. Some of you could have a bare patch where nothing else seems to grow, or like me, all of the above. Plus, I removed a tree house and I'm filling the bare patch under the tree with native plants. And since we are all busy, I hope that the ideas we discussed today can help you get started or continue what you already started more easily. Maybe you will be able to move, buy, and plant native plants to the top of your to-do list without having to first invest a lot of research into what and where to buy. Today's presentation has 4 sections. We will first talk a little bit about defining goals. This will include getting technical so that we are all better prepared when shopping for plants to make the choices that align with our goals. We'll spend the bulk of the presentation peeking at some of the choices that I made for my own garden and why I made them. And I hope that this can help you make plant selection based on your own goals. Then we'll identify where to buy native plants. And finally, we'll discuss where to get help. When defining goals for gardens, we may want to consider environmental conditions in our gardens, keystone plants for this area, whether we prefer straight species or cultivars or hybrids, and any special interests, for example, like attracting hummingbirds. Let's discuss each one of these one by one. Environmental conditions important to consider are the amount of sunlight that the area that we are planting gets, the presence of mammals and soil conditions. Do you have full sun, partial shade, or shade? Are your plants accessible to deer or rabbits, keeping in mind that some native plants are deer and rabbit resistant, but when hungry, deer and rabbits could eat anything. So barriers may be necessary if your garden is not fenced, and especially when the plants are young. And are there areas of your garden that are naturally wet or moist, for example, near a stream, and others that are dry? Have you taken your soil to a testing center to determine the pH? If you plant native plants in the conditions that they are adapted to, this could reduce substantially the need to water them once they are established. The native plant gardener's mantra is the right place, the right plant for the right space. Now, this is where we want to get a little technical so that we are all prepared to make the choices that are right for us. We'll go over what is a keystone plant and identify some of them in this area. We'll discuss the advantages of planting straight species versus cultivars or hybrids, and we'll discuss plant names so that when we are at the garden store, we will all know how to identify which plant is a straight species, which is a cultivar, and which is a hybrid. And also so that you do not fall into a common trap to mistake a non-native plant for a native plant with an identical common name. Keystone plants are native plants critical to the food web and necessary for many wildlife species to complete their life cycle. Just a reminder, when I refer to wildlife, I'm not referring to deer, rabbits, and other mammals that do not face extinction risk. I'm referring to insects, mainly bees, butterflies, caterpillars, and also to birds, given how critical they are to a healthy local ecosystem and even to our own survival. If we remove keystone plants, the diversity and abundance of many essential insect species, which 96% of terrestrial birds rely on for food sources, will be diminished. The ecosystem collapses in a similar way that the removal of the keystone in ancient Roman art will trigger its demise. Doug Tallamy and his team at the University of Delaware have identified that 14% of native plants, these are the keystones, support 90% of butterfly and moth species. And the research of horticulturist Jared Fowler has shown that 15% to 60% of North American native bee species are pollen specialists who only eat pollen from 40% of native plants. These are the keystones. If you would like to provide a nice environment for caterpillars that will feed hungry birds or build cocoonos that turn into beautiful butterflies, planting keystone plants may become a priority for you. Layering ensures a habitat for a wide range of species and is also important to the beauty of a garden. This slide from the Northern Virginia Bird Alliance, which was formerly called Audubon at Home, shows each garden layer: the canopy layer, the mid-story layer, the understory or shrub layer, and the ground cover layer, including perennials, grasses, and ground covers. All are essential garden layers to provide beauty and also nourishment and cover for birds and insects. Keystones can be canopy trees, mid-story trees, understory shrubs or perennials, grasses, or ground covers. In the next few slides, I will highlight just a few keystones from each of these garden layers. Later in the presentation, when we take a glimpse of the plants in my garden, I will indicate which featured native plants are keystones. And you can get the full list of keystones on the National Wildlife Federation website. The link is right here at the bottom of this slide. This slide has some of the keystone canopy trees. Doug Tallamy refers to the oak tree as the mighty oak, as it is the keystone plant with the largest number of caterpillar species that use it as a host plant, 436. Sugar maple, which has 238 caterpillars that use it as a host plant, black cherry, 340, and river birch, 284, are also all critical to large number of caterpillars. You may remember from July 27th's example of butterfly weed and the monarch butterfly that a host plant is where butterflies and moths lay their eggs and are what the new caterpillar eats. Some keystone understory trees and shrubs are serviceberry, which has 92 caterpillars that use it as a host plant, dogwood, 98, northern highbush blueberry, 217, and northern bayberry, 103 caterpillars. Northern bayberry is evergreen with mild winters or semi-evergreen in colder climates. I've had a northern bayberry now for 2 winters and it has stayed evergreen. Excuse me. Some keystone perennials are woodland sunflower with 66 caterpillars that use them as a host plant, goldenrod, 104, aster, 100, and black-eyed Susan, 20. Okay, now let's talk about the difference between a straight species, a cultivar, and a hybrid. Straight species occur naturally and thus offer the greatest biodiversity and biggest ecological impact. Cultivars are selected for a specific trait, for example, to develop white mildew-resistant plants, or smaller, more compact plants, or redder leaves in the fall. They therefore have less genetic diversity. They also potentially have some loss of ecological impact. Scientists are studying this now, and so far at Mount Cuba Center, they found no loss of ecological impact for example, a cultivar bred to be shorter. They did find that changing the color of leaves did have ecological impact, with fewer insects finding the new color of leaves. Experts recommend that we choose wild-type, non-cultivar, straight species grown from seed when possible. If we select cultivars, select ones that retain the leaf color, flower shape, and flower timing of the straight species. By the way, sometimes native cultivars are referred to as nativars. A hybrid is the intentional breeding of two different plant species to create a new plant without genetic diversity. Some hybrids are sterile. They are not the best choice in a pollinator garden. When you go to the plant store, the way to be able to tell whether the plant that you are considering to purchase is a straight species or a cultivar or a hybrid is through the plant labeling, which usually includes the common name and the Latin name, and also the hybrid or cultivar name when relevant. A straight species will most often have the common name and the Latin genus and the species written in italics with the first word capitalized. A hybrid will have the common name and the genus written in italics, as well as the hybrid name in single quotation marks. It won't have the species after the genus, since it is a cross between two species. A cultivar or nativar will most often have the common name and the genus and species written in italics with the first word capitalized, along with the cultivar name in single quotation marks. So here on the slide, I just gave a few examples. Butterfly weeds, straight species, Asclepias tuberosa. There's no cultivar name because it's a straight species. Black-eyed Susan, if you get a straight species, it's Rudbeckia hirta. An example of a hybrid is Black-eyed Susan Rudbeckia. There's no species here since it's a cross between species. And here's the hybrid name, American Gold Rush. And cultivar, Black-eyed Susan, Rudbeckia hirta. So we know it's a cultivar because it's a Cherokee Sunset, and it also has the species name. Just some other examples here of cultivars: goldenrod, solidago rugosa, fireworks, New England aster, Symphotricum novae anglae, purple dome. The Latin name is also useful to truly identify any plant. For example, common names can refer to an Asian species or a native species. How do we know which one is which? Through the Latin name. For example, the Chinese French tree's Latin name is Chionathus retusus, and the American French tree is Chionathus virginicus. So if you want to know what you are planting, it is always a good idea to check not just the common name, but also the Latin name. Another example is the groundsel. It is one of the common names for Packera aurea, that is a ground cover that I know by the common name of golden ragwort. It is a ground cover I highly recommend if you have a large area that you would like to fill with a beautiful semi-evergreen ground cover that can spread quickly. Since I've got it in my yard, you'll see a glimpse of it later on as well. The common name groundsel also refers to East Asian groundsel, Tephroceras kirilawi. I also added, just so you could see the diversity, 3 different geraniums, each with a different Latin name. So it can be easy to get confused with so many choices. Besides perhaps preferring keystone plants or straight species, you may also have a preference for host plants for certain butterflies to attract bees or hummingbirds. You may want blossoms or berries year-round so that you can enjoy them and provide nourishment to bees, butterflies, and birds. You may like a tidy look or a wild look, or plants that require less maintenance and are easiest to care for. Maybe you are missing a garden layer, critical to attracting wildlife and creating a pleasing look. This brings us to the second part of the presentation. A glimpse at my yard. Let's talk now about some of the native plants I have planted in my garden and why I love them. Maybe some of these will be appropriate for the environmental conditions where you want to plant, and maybe some of the reasons that I planted them will resonate with you. If so, these plants might be a good place for you to start developing your native plant garden. I have featured plants from the understory and ground cover layer, shrubs, perennials, and ground covers that I have planted in the last few years. My garden also has large keystone canopy trees, oak, hickory, and black cherry, though I have not featured these. If you don't have canopy trees and you have room in your garden, you may also consider planting one this year. I just, in fact, added 7 new trees to my garden, and I'm about to get another one with the help of a government program, and we'll go into that later as well. There's lots of help around to give you incentive to plant trees. One canopy tree idea, if your garden is smallish, you may want to look at the dwarf chestnut oak recommended by Doug Tallamy, which grows 12 to 25 feet and produces acorns in just 3 to 5 years. Now let's get started at looking in depth at a few beautiful native plants. Virginia bluebells, Mertensia virginica. This is one of my absolute favorites that we saw a glimpse of during the July 27th presentation. Bottom line, early spring color. If you would like to see them en masse, go to Riverbend Park in late March or early April to see them and other spring ephemerals under the forest canopy and by the river. They like full sun in early spring and then shade as the forest canopy fills in. Blooms will fade first and then the foliage by the end of May. The top smaller picture was taken in my garden on March 20th in 2022, showing that the early buds are pink. The bottom picture is showing full bloom on March 27th in Riverbend Park the same year. Green and gold. I was looking for an evergreen ground cover that I could use to start replacing the Vinca minor in my garden. I fell in love with green and gold due to its beautiful yellow flowers and semi-evergreen leaves. They were evergreen this year in the mild winter and also the winter before. In spite of a colony of rabbits taking over my neighborhood, they have not touched the green and gold. I planted a carpet of green and gold in spring 2023 and it has thrived. This picture is from a friend's garden in Rappahannock County, April 2022. Golden ragwort, we just mentioned, Pacara aurea. This is a great ground cover for someone that wants a semi-evergreen to evergreen ground cover that will spread quickly. It gets beautiful yellow flowers in the spring. I planted 3 small plugs in the spring of 2022, and it has now completely filled the area where I planted it. The pictures are from my garden. Bottom right, February 25th, 2023, from bottom, actually, this is from bottom left. February 25th, 2023, April 19th, 2023, April 29th, 2020, this is April 29th, 2024, and May 20th, 2024. So you can see how it changes and what it looks like after the flowers bloom, and those long stems will go away, or you can also trim them down if you want to. Wild geranium, Geranium maculatum. In May 2023, I went to Glenstone Museum and took special note of the native plants that were blooming there, since there was a dearth of natives blooming in my own garden at that time in late spring. Last fall, I bought one of those plants, wild geranium. This is it, May 7th this year in my back garden. Next year, it will be fuller with even more beautiful pink blooms. This plant loves shade. Dogwood, Cornus florida. This has been my favorite tree since I was a little girl growing up in Maryland. In art class in primary school, I remember going outside to sketch the dogwoods. And as Virginia's state tree and state flower, it is a must-have in any local garden. It is a beautiful addition to the mid-story layer as it provides year-round beauty and nourishment for wildlife. A newly planted sapling can take some time to get established. I took this picture April 2022, the first year I had a full bloom since planting the tree in 2016. American fringe trees, Chionanthus virginicus. In 2022, I lost an heirloom oak tree that was very near my house and diseased. Rather than plant another oak tree, in fall 2022, I opted to replace it with this beautiful, unique mid-story tree, which provides year-round interest. The larger picture is not my own, as mine is just a small sapling pictured here in the upper right. I can't wait until I can take my own picture of a blooming fringe tree in my yard. Mine would be bigger than it is, but in summer 2023, a bunny chopped the top off. It came back this spring with vigor, and I've been careful this year to protect it better. This picture is from July this year, just before I put chicken wire around my little tree to protect it from the bunnies. Inkberry, Ilex glabra. This is a beautiful evergreen shrub that gets delicate white flowers in the spring. If you also plant a male, the female will get small blackberries later in the fall. This picture is from a friend's garden, May 2022. Another friend and I loved it so much that we both added some to our gardens. And I also planted a male, and I'm hoping for some berries to feed the birds. This is the first cultivar I am showing today. It is bred to be more compact and is an ideal replacement for boxwood. Shamrock cultivars are only female. The male that I planted is a straight species. Inkberry spreads by rhizomes and would be perfect for a hedge. Dwarf black chokeberry, Aronia melanocarpa. I saw this first at a friend's house just as I had made the decision to remove my dwarf butterfly bush in 2023. When I saw the same dwarf variety at a native plant sale, I decided to put it in the spot vacated by butterfly bush. The rabbits ate it almost immediately, and it came back with vigor this spring. Without protection, the rabbits started eating away at it again. I've now added protection, and I'm hoping I can replace this stock photo with one from my garden next year. So I think you all are getting the picture as well. You're learning a lot about what the bunnies like, because I have a lot of bunnies around my garden. Wild columbine, Aguilea canadensis. This is an absolutely stunning flower that is easy to grow and attracts hummingbirds, which is a priority for me. I planted 2 in my garden 3 years ago. I added 3 more spring 2023, in a shady woodland area of my garden. This photo is from my shady woodland garden this spring, 2024. So those that are looking for plants for shade, this is another really great one. High bush blueberry. This is a keystone plant. When I bought my house 30 years ago, there were already high bush blueberry bushes in my garden. Only one of those originals is left now, and it's over 7 feet tall. And I have now planted more and always compete with the birds for their delicious fruit. Because rabbits love to eat the foliage, I have put netting around the young plants. This picture was taken in June on a hike in the Shenandoah. And in the inset here is my 7-foot tall tree covered in the fine mesh netting to protect this year's bumper crop of blueberries from the birds. I've been eating them every day for about 6 weeks until this week, when there are finally none left. Shared also, by the way, with the chipmunks, and just 3 days ago, for the first time, a squirrel who went up underneath the netting. Butterfly weed, Asclepias tuberosa. This is a must-have for a pollinator garden. As we discussed yesterday, milkweed is July 27th. Milkweed is the only plant that the larva of the monarch butterfly will eat, and it is stunning and tolerates some drought. A study at the University of Kentucky found that, in addition to attracting monarchs, butterfly weed is the best milkweed for attracting native bees. The bottom left picture, shown with a native leafcutter bee, was taken by a friend in July 22 in her garden. This one was so beautiful, beautiful stock photo. I decided to include it too. Swamp milkweed, Asclepias incarnata. If you would like to attract even more monarchs, plant swamp milkweed as well. It is a butterfly magnet. Best at attracting the monarch butterfly in small gardens, according to the same University of Kentucky study. Common milkweed is one of the best at attracting monarchs overall, but it spreads aggressively by rhizomes and may not be ideal for a small home garden. Instead, swamp milkweed is the one I recommend as a butterfly and bee magnet and a beautiful addition to a garden pollinator, a pollinator garden. I planted mine spring 2022 and got some blooms in 2022 and some last summer. With the plant's root system now strong, this year it has been blooming prolifically. This picture is from the pollinator garden outside of Politics and Prose on Connecticut Avenue, taken the end of August 2022. The smaller one on the inset in the upper left is a picture I took just this last Sunday in my own garden. Monarchs love swamp milkweed. Unfortunately, I couldn't get close up, so I couldn't get a super duper picture, but at least I got a picture. Purple coneflower, Echinacea purpurea. This has a long blooming period, pleasing flower lovers, as well as the many bees, butterflies, and birds that use it for nourishment. It's very easy to grow. The main photo was taken in a friend's garden last September 2023. The inset is a picture that the same friend took in early July this year, with the purple coneflower being visited by a spice bush swallowtail butterfly and a sacking moth at the same time, which is a species of skipper. Scarlet bee balm, Monarda didyma. This is my all-time favorite. It is a hummingbird, butterfly, and bee magnet and is stunning. It requires maintenance to keep it from taking over the garden, as it can spread from year to year. It is highly susceptible to powdery mildew, which reduces its beauty, but will not kill it. Mount Cooper Center research has identified some cultivars that are highly mildew resistant: Violet Queen, Achel Grand Marshal, Judas Fancy Fuchsia, and Purple Rooster. Cardinal flower, Lobelia cardinalis. Along with scarlet bee balm, this is a top performer for attracting hummingbirds. It has a reputation for being short-lived, but also self-seeds in the right conditions. Mine did self-seed, and the new seedlings developed their root systems over last winter, and it bloomed in late June. I've had at least one visit from a hummingbird every day since then, and many days multiple visits. This video was taken in my garden July of this year. I do love hummingbirds. Garden phlox, Phlox paniculata. A friend gifted me this 4 years ago, and I have enjoyed the constant summer presence of eastern tiger swallowtail butterflies drinking its nectar ever since. It is very easy to care for, and its bright pink flowers are beautiful and long-lasting. It also attracts hummingbirds. Jenna is a powdery mildew-resistant cultivar. I took this picture just a few weeks ago on July 24th, and I have many, many more pictures with eastern tiger swallowtail butterflies and phlox. Black-eyed Susan. Black-eyed Susans are a keystone plant. It is also the Maryland state flower and another favorite from my childhood. I can't imagine my summer garden without it. The goldfinches love it and also love the sunflower that the goldfinch in this picture is resting on. This photo was taken in my garden July 2022. Whitewood aster. This provides early fall blossoms just when some summer blossoms are starting to fade. I planted some fall 2022, so had beautiful white blossoms in the fall of 2023. The photo was taken at a friend's house, September 2023. The lower one here was taken in my garden in the woodland area, September 15th, 2023, just before the rabbits devoured it. But the roots of the plant survived, and they came up again this year. And this year, I added protection from bunnies, so I'm going to get more blossoms again. New England aster, Symphyiotrichum novae anglae, purple dome. This is a keystone plant, which I planted spring 2022, having bought it when a small park in Tacoma Park was dividing and selling excess perennials for only $5 each. It provides beautiful fall color and nectar for pollinators, but it is a challenge to shield from the rabbits in my garden. But so far, I have prevailed this year. I did add a little bit of protection. The pictures were taken September 2022 in my garden. Goldenrod Solidago rugosa fireworks. This is an important keystone and fall nectar source for pollinators. This compact cultivar is gorgeous. I took the photo in a friend's garden, September 22, before she divided and gifted me some from my own garden. The smaller picture is from my own garden, October 2023. I included it so you could see how beautiful it is to plant goldenrod and the New England aster purple dome together. I had trouble protecting the younger goldenrod shoots from rabbits, but they left it alone as it matured. And really, I haven't had any problem since that very first year. Goldenrod should not be confused with ragweed, by the way, which causes hay fever. Goldenrod does not cause hay fever. Winterberry, Ilex verticillata. I fell in love with winterberry when a friend invited me to Ladue Gardens in Moncton, Maryland, October 2022, where the winterberry shrubs already had berries. I pulled up my patch of invasive forsythia and replaced it with native winterberry, 2 females, which will produce berries, and 1 male needed for cross-pollination. Unfortunately, I didn't have berries this past winter, and even 2 of my 3 plants did not survive. And I'm thinking about moving them to a moisture area and adding others because I really do love it, and I think it's worth giving it another try. The area where I had planted it, I believe, was too dry for winterberry. Clustered mountain mint, Pycnanthemum multicum. This is a favorite of many people as it is a pollinator magnet. In my garden, I didn't plant it. It somehow arrived to my garden along with another native plant that I purchased, and I am so pleased it came along for the ride. It is beautiful, attracts lots of bees, and importantly for my garden, the bunnies are not interested in it. And since I have it in my front yard where there are also lots of deer, importantly, the deer also have no interest. I took this picture July 9th this year when a native legated furrow bee was having its breakfast. The small picture on the lower right is from September 15th, 2023, this one, when I first discovered it in my garden. This small picture in the upper right shows how it spread between September and July. It should only be planted in an area that you would like to fill up, or it can be easily controlled with a garden spade. It spreads less than other mountain mints. Passion flower, Passiflora incarnata. This is one of the newest additions to my garden. I just planted it in July. And I thought it was a really great one to include because I know there's a lot of interest in container plants, and you can really grow just about any native plant in a container. And so don't be shy about trying. But this one, you should only plant in a container. It's very aggressive, and it can send runners throughout your whole garden very quickly if it is not contained. You'll need a container that's, about 2 feet in circumference, by the way. It's a perennial deciduous vine with an absolutely stunning flower, and it also produces passion fruit. The passion fruit, widely available in Latin America, is a cultivar of this vine. So this picture in the inset, by the way, this is my newly planted passion fruit. I am hoping to have this next spring. Okay, now that you have had a glimpse of the beautiful native plants in my garden, perhaps you would like to buy some for your garden, or maybe you already have others in mind. Where can we buy native plants? We will now talk about native plant sales that feature a variety of vendors from the area. The website Plant Nova Natives, shown here, will have all of the native plant sales in Northern Virginia, local native plant nurseries that you can visit, and some reliable online sources. The reason that I'm recommending native plant sellers is because specialist native plant vendors never use pesticides that could harm the pollinators that you are attracting. If you shop at large nurseries that feature ornamentals and native plants sourced from a variety of vendors, you may want to ask about the use of pesticides to be sure of what you are buying. It is unlikely that they will be able to provide you assurances that no pesticides were used. Also, native plant sellers do not sell non-natives, so there is no risk of accidentally buying a non-native invasive plant. So in the presentation today, I am featuring the Northern Alexandria native plant sale, which is one of the biggest in the area and one that I have been to many times. This year, it will be Saturday, September 28th, 2024, 9 to 2. Check the website, see who the vendors are, and if there's certain plants that you would really like to buy, do send an email to any one of the vendors ahead of time and ask them to bring that plant, being very clear on the size you would like, if you want a straight species or cultivar. And you will find that they're very receptive to those kinds of special requests. This plant sale, Mount Vernon Fall Plant and Garden Sale, is close to home, Alexandria, and it is taking place in just 1 month. The sale is largely native, but I understand will also include some heirloom ornamentals grown from seeds from the estate. For example, they're going to have boxwood, which is not a native plant, but they will have many, many, many native plants. This is the last native plant sale that I'll feature today. And the first one is coming up in less than a month, and then 2 more in October. Do check the Plant Nova Natives website for updates and also for other native plant sales. There may be others that are convenient to you, but I tried to pick the ones that seem the most convenient to Alexandria. This is a list of a few local native plant sellers in the area, and you can find more at the links on the top of this slide, right here, these 2 links. Watermark Woods has an excellent online database that can be used to see if the plant that you would like is in stock, and also to read about the characteristics of different native plants. The site has features that allow you to put together a wish list. And it's an excellent nursery that I have been to a few times now. Bonaterra has a lot of plugs, which they sell at native plant sales. Planting a plug is a good low-cost way to start introducing native plants to your garden. They have been holding native plant giveaways on the weekends at their nursery in Friendship, Maryland, which, by the way, is moving to Indian Head, Maryland. So these events are now on hold until September. You can order via email and pick up in their DC location, or if you live in Alexandria, you can take advantage of free delivery days, October 10th and 11th this year. The order window to take advantage of free delivery in Alexandria on these dates is September 19th to October 3rd. The Pollination and Izil are good online retailers known for quality and not using pesticides. Nature by Design. I'm in the process right now of making my first order there, and I've heard great things about them. So I encourage you to give them a try. You can conveniently pick up orders made by email at the 4 Mile Run Farmers Market on Saturdays, and they also have a delivery option. I have not ordered yet from Sangha in Springfield, but I've heard good things about them, and I've seen the owner speak. He's a very strong and talented environmentalist. Sangha only offers straight species, not cultivars. They provide the most environmental benefit. So where can you get help? There are a plethora of resources from cost-sharing government programs, organizations that offer advice to the public, and membership communities. There are also many, many websites with advice and many organizations that post on social media or Instagram with advice and also about upcoming events. If you live in the city of Alexandria, Fairfax County, or the city of Fairfax, contact the Northern Virginia Soil and Water Conservation District to inquire about a rebate through the Virginia Conservation Assistance Program. To contact them, submit a site visit request online. You can find the site visit request button on the website address here on the lower left of this slide. VCAP can help you, for example, control and minimize erosion, conserve water within the landscape, promote wildlife habitat, revegetate bare slopes, and more. And native plants are a part and can help with all of these things. Conservation landscaping is one of the eligible practices for cost sharing, which is essentially planting native plants. You can see from this slide that there are many other eligible practices, so if you are interested, do submit a request for a site visit. Eligible homeowners have properties that are experiencing detrimental impacts from stormwater in the form of erosion, poor ground cover, and/or excess runoff. I think that this can describe literally all homeowners. Anywhere you have water flowing off a hard surface, for example, a roof or driveway, can be evaluated for Virginia Conservation Assistance Program cost sharing. Civic associations, homeowners associations, places of worship are all eligible to apply for projects on common land as well. And I included here just a few figures. They're from the VCAP website to give you an idea of how the cost sharing program might help. VCAP also offers community programs and presentations where you can learn more. Take a look at the website. It's listed right here at the bottom of the slide to find out more about these community programs and presentations and where they are. I also included this, someone's asked me before, what's a rain barrel? So this is a rain barrel that can be attached to your gutter system. It's eligible for cost sharing under the program. So you can water all those native plants that you're going to plant. Okay, organizations. The Wildlife Sanctuary Program at the Northern Virginia Bird Alliance, formerly Audubon at Home, makes home visits to assess properties and provide advice in creating a wildlife sanctuary on your property. To request a visit from a volunteer ambassador to assist with recommendations specific to your property, with special focus on increasing biodiversity with native plants, check out the website right here. And by the way, I am an Audubon at Home ambassador, but I only work in Fauquier and Rappahannock counties. The program is excellent, and there are many, many good Northern Virginia Bird Alliance Wildlife Sanctuary Program ambassadors that service Alexandria. So you're very lucky. In Maryland and DC does not have such a program. There's also something called the Tree Stewards of Arlington and Alexandria, which I found out about on July 27th. And this sounds like an excellent program. It offers public education programs with advice on native saplings, on removing invasive ivies and vines, choking trees without damaging them. They staff informational booths at farmers markets and local festivals, and lead neighborhood tree walks and speak at community gatherings. So check the Tree Stewards website for information on tree-related events and classes, and also how to become a tree steward. And this is something also very special to Alexandria, something that you're able to take advantage of that people in other areas in the DC area are not do not have. Another thing that you've got in Northern Virginia is the Northern Virginia Wild Ones. They promote native landscapes through education, advocacy, and collaborative action. They're a membership community, so do check the website if you'd like to meet other people that are interested in native plants and network with them and learn lots of things. Again, a resource we don't have in DC and in few places in Maryland. Okay, all of the organizations listed in the slide have websites or Facebook pages or Instagram or YouTube channels where you can get helpful tips and learn about native plant learning events. So go ahead and Google them and check out their websites, and you will find endless resources. Follow them on Facebook. I check Facebook every day now, and I learn so much from it, from each one of these sites that I follow. I get helpful tips every single day. And you can get help from designers, landscapers to remove natives and plant and maintain native gardens. If you apply to the VCAP program for cost sharing, they will give you a list of eligible contractors. So that is actually also a great way of knowing who some of the native plant landscapers are. And on the Homegrown National Park website, they maintain a list of native plant landscapers. Check their websites. I've listed the 3 I could find near Alexandria, but check their websites for more information. Note that I'm not recommending any of these. I have no experience with them, but this gives you an idea of what you'll find if you look on the Homegrown National Park website, and you can explore any of these and see if they are right for you and your garden. And if all else fails, this could be another way to attract hummingbirds to your garden. And this brings us to the end of the presentation. Plant choice matters. Healthy local ecosystems add up to a healthy planet. And thank you very much. Enjoy creating your wildlife paradise. And I don't know, are there questions or comments in the chat? I actually can't see this. Oh, there's 7. I can see it.
Yeah, Janet, thank you so much. I realize we're at close to 8 o'clock, so those who have to jump off,
Yes.
feel free. But if you have time to stay for the few questions, that would be great. Elizabeth asks, how does one share cuttings from your garden with friends? Any tips for how to best do that so the cutting survives?
Meaning the cutting, meaning to put in a vase or to share in their garden. So I think what you're asking
garden
is
to plant for someone else to plant in their garden.
Yeah. You know, some plants are easier than others. So for example, in the case of garden phlox, the beautiful pink one with the Eastern Tiger swallowtail butterfly, when my friend Libby gifted that to me years ago, I couldn't really even see the roots on it. And I planted it and it grew. And I've now also transplanted within my garden in a similar fashion. Super easy to transplant. But for the most part, what you're going to want to do is take a chunk of the plant, dig it up by the roots, and then give it to the person. You will find that a lot of native plants spread by rhizomes, some aggressively, like I pointed out, for example, with the bee balm. And so you're always going to have a lot of it that you're going to want to give away. And then others spread, but maybe not so quickly. But you can still just take off, you know, kind of a tiny corner, make sure you've got the roots, put it in a little pot with some soil, and it'll be fine. I've gotten lots and lots of plants from friends that way, and I have also gifted lots of plants to friends that way.
Great, thank you, Janet.
And then Daphne asks, what are your top 3 plant recommendations for growing in a mostly shady area and in containers? I have a very shady patio at the moment.
Well, one would be columbine, which I had featured earlier in the presentation. Columbine is really, really, it's so striking. I'll never forget the first time I saw it, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I had never seen a plant so unusual looking, and yet it's native. It's just that native plants were not so widely available, so it was new to me. Now it's fairly widely available. So columbine would be one. Another one, I didn't show it today in the picture as one of my favorites, but there's another kind of phlox called woodland phlox. It's lower growing than the garden phlox, the pink one that I showed, which can get up to say 3 feet tall. Woodland phlox is maybe only 1 foot tall, and that thrives in shade. And so you could look at that. I think wild geranium maybe would be a third. And there are many, many more. I think the best thing to do is to go to one of those websites, like the Virginia Native Plant Society, for example, I think is one of the best. And in their search engine, put in plants for shady gardens. And they'll have a blog, they'll have pictures, they'll have lots and lots of suggestions beyond those that I have shared with you today.
Elizabeth shares a warning that some libraries hold seed and plant exchanges, caution some of these plants are poisonous to pets. So that, yes, that definitely would be something to consider. I know the plant exchanges at least Alexandria Library have been run through the Master Gardeners of Northern Virginia. So we do have someone who is an expert or knows what they're talking about run ours. But yes, thank you, Elizabeth, for that warning.
And it's great to look at the Master Gardener of Northern Virginia website. It's also terrific to follow them on Facebook, because they're always providing tips and different seminars that you can attend.
I'm not seeing any more questions in the chat. For those who are watching, I know Janet shared an incredible amount of information. We will be sharing the slides and the presentation to those who have registered. So if you need to go back and check some of the information shared, you will have the opportunity to do that. Janet, thank you so much. This was incredible. So beautiful to see the flowers from your garden and neighbors' gardens, to see how they thrive in their native environment. So I appreciate you sharing that information. Elizabeth and others who are on the call from the Alexandria Beautification Commission, thank you as well for organizing this and making this event possible. Thank you all for joining us, and have a wonderful evening.
And thank you, Megan, and thank you, everyone, and good night.